the daily space weather, folks. We're looking at the sun here at 193 angstroms. We've got an interesting series of things going on today. There's an Earth-facing coronal mass ejection just about to kick off as we do the show. Some interesting cosmology stuff. Some interesting geology stuff. So thanks for tuning in. I be your host, smAsho. And, Alright. Anyway, no real major features to talk about here. No sunspots or anything like that. And please take a moment to like and subscribe. Thanks to our new subscribers, whether you're viewing on BitChute or on YouTube. This one is actually not being live streamed. And the title is Coronal Mass Ejection, Cosmology, Quasars. Oh my. So also, thanks to our latest subscriber on BitChute. Please don't forget to subscribe over there, as there will be more and more exclusive content as we increase our amount of output. Also, I invite you to join us on Instagram and other social media. We're hoping Mark Zuckerberg has a full recovery from COVID-19. Also, I want to say something about PTS. Now, I've had PTS many, many times, as I've had many, many injuries throughout the years. So since the whole world's going to have PTS as a result of COVID-19, the global pandemic, or you could say scamdemic, post-traumatic stress is not a disorder. It is PTS, not PTSD. PTS is your brain working correctly to prevent future trauma. Do not adjust your pain threshold intentionally. Don't go out there and injure yourself. There is a downside. That the no pain, no gain thing is real to a point. So if you're not at the pro athlete scale, believe me, you do not want to mess with your pain threshold. It's super dangerous to mess with your pain threshold because you may find yourself critically injured and not realizing it. So anyway, if you're feeling like there's no way out, be patient with yourself. And while you may be critical of yourself, and you think other people are critical of you too, chances are you're much more critical of yourself than anybody else is. So chill out, don't worry about it, and don't pick a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Also, I had a horrible dream. Oh my gosh, I had the scariest dream. Oh no. Fortunately, it didn't come true. Yeah! We try to put some levity over there on Instagram. We're also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/smAshomash. If you use that, we're also on Twitter, believe it or not. We don't tweet very much. Occasionally we do. We're also on Gab, and we're also on Minds, minds.com/smAshomash, the future of social media, where you won't be censored, shadow banned, depersoned, deplatformed, etc. You'll see all of the stuff that you want to see. And let's go take a look at stereo A. We're going to be looking from this kind of a view, and you're going to see a plume of plasma about to go blasting off in this direction. Whether or not it will be properly Earth-facing, we can't tell yet, but here's the data. So we're looking at the space weather beacon here, the coronagraph, the C2 coronagraph, out at stereo A, which trails the Earth by about 3 months in terms of its orbit around the sun. And it sees space weather before we do, and it gives us an idea. Now the Earth is out in this direction, and you can see this right in this area right here. You're going to see a substantial ball of plasma coming through there, and that is going to eject most assuredly. I would bet the farm on it. If I owned a farm, give me a couple years, I'll own a farm. Anyway, so we see a coronal mass ejection kicking off on the far side of the sun, which is actually kind of headed out towards stereo A a little bit, but this one's going on right now, and you can see the date stamps there, 4/15. It's tax day, and the GOES magnetometer reflects this too. We'll get to all kinds of other data in a minute. Let's get back to looking at the sun here. Here's HelioViewer, and here are the fields, and you're not going to see very much field activity there. No sunspots or anything like that. There's the 304 angstroms view as well. And let's get back into animated views of the sun here. Here's the 304 angstroms view. And you really can't see anything from this perspective, although I expect some limb darkening to happen today. And it looks like we got a little bit of an anomaly there in the data. You see the screen lit up green there. And probably some sort of a radiative output from somewhere. Who knows where. And the KP index has been steady at 3 for the past 9 hours. Coming up off the floor where it was 0 late afternoon yesterday. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is at 71 solar flux units. And for you new viewers out there, again, thanks for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is a good proxy for sunspot number. So this is quite directly proportional to sunspot number. And the nice thing about the 10.7 centimeter radial flux is that you can monitor it on a cloudy day from Earth when we didn't use, in 1947, we didn't have any space telescopes. And that's when the 10.7 centimeter radial flux was discovered by some Canadians playing with some World War II radio equipment. Here's where stuff is located in the solar system. There's where things will be in 1 week as we approach my favorite phase of the moon, the new moon. Why do I like it? Because I'm a bad sleeper, and the darker it is at night, the better you sleep. So the ideas about full moon causing actual phenomenon to occur are real, in that when it's lighter out, people find it harder to sleep. A lot of people don't have a completely dark bedroom. And let's move on to where things are above my head. We're shooting the video today at 2:40 a.m. And this one, again, this is actually not being streamed live for once. So we're actually doing a recorded video for once. And anyway, there's where stuff is above my head. It looks like Jupiter's just rising on the horizon. If you've got a low horizon, keep an eye on that ecliptic. As, you're going to see Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars all rise along with the moon. So here's the GOES X-ray flux, and it's quite flatlined there, as, again, we don't see any active regions or sunspots. And while we don't see any protons hitting right now, we may see a little uptick in this, especially if the coronal mass ejection that's kicking off right now ends up striking Earth. How long will it take? Well, who knows? It's very difficult to gauge the speed of these things, but we are working on a system for it here at smAsho.org, and we can't tell you the details of it because there are a lot of scavengers on the internet, so we'll have to roll it out when it's fully implemented, and that's just all there is to it, because we don't want anybody to steal our ideas, because we need credit for them in order to build our science foundation. So looking at the real-time solar wind, we see a shifting phi angle, which has been all over the place for the past 12 hours, currently at about 315 degrees. Solar wind density has dropped down from yesterday to 4 protons per cubic centimeter, and the solar wind speed has also ramped down to about 400 kilometers per second. There's the data from ACE. There's the latest data, and you can see what's reflected just since we did show prep. We're not changing the format very much to do a recorded video today, folks. We're not overproducing it. It's going to look just like our live streams. Next, we'll look at the geospace magnetosphere movies, and we see a fairly steady magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And stay tuned for the cosmology segment, folks, as it's getting interesting, let's just say. Anyway, there's 4 hours of data there, courtesy University of Michigan Geospace Model. And here we see significant magnetic perturbations all over the planet, including some pulses coming out of the Central Pacific Ocean, right in there. And some significant pulses over the North Canadian Pole, the South Pole, which has creeped into the Southern Indian Ocean, and so on. And let's keep it going here. And we see very low magnetometer readings, as I forecasted. And you can see this continued sawtooth pattern. We even had some data loss there caused by what we call a CCD bakeout, when the charge coupled device shuts itself off to prevent damage. Anyway, you see these spikes and these very low readings. That is a result of the coronal mass ejection plasma being in between us and the magnetometer. I mean, the plasma being between the sun and the magnetometer. That is what causes these very, very low readings. And while it's not a signature of a coronal mass ejection in itself, there is some corroborating evidence there. So here you can see this dense region of plasma, which is just moving into the Earth-facing zone, and part of that is going to be releasing today. So 99.99% sure of it. There's about a 1 in 1,000 chance that I'm wrong. And anyway, there's a top view ecliptic plane field plot on the Gong 2 data. Keep in mind it's 1 hour and 12 minutes old, and the magnetic environment can change with zero warning. Here's the line of sight field plot, about the same age of data here. Just a little over an hour old, and we may see some anomalies here showing up in the B field, as the plasma could indeed mess with the magnetometer readings. And we'll talk about space plasma a little bit. First, let's look at the electron flux, which is still at quite low levels as forecasted. There's the GOES electron flux, and you can see it's cratered as we forecasted. Next, we'll look at the ionosphere, and it's quite anomalous up there. This is 6 hours of data courtesy Government of Australia Bureau of Meteorology, and we see significant discharge nighttime events there. And it's looking a little bit anomalous, folks. If you look at this one every day, and if you know how to forecast earthquakes via the ionosphere, go right ahead. I'm not so sure that I understand or even believe how that works, as I don't have time to cover every bit of science constantly. Anyway, here's the latest image, and there you go. Yeah, it's looking a little bit on the anomalous side there, pretty much for the entire run. Again, that's 6 hours of data. Next, we're going to look at the pressure cells on the planet. Here's Windy.com's pressure maps, and we're going to advance this via the GFS forecast. And we'll put this about 24 hours in the future. And by the way, there's new content about to be released. Later today at 6 a.m. we're going to have a second premiere after the daily space weather. So make sure you see that at 6 a.m. Attend the live premiere. It's basically a music video starring our favorite star. There's where we expect pressure cells to be 24 hours from now. Let's talk about Cantor functions, also known as Devil's Staircase. Well, Cantor functions seem to be tied together with the timing of large earthquakes. So, while I can't vet any of this information, I'm not a geologist, an interesting article has surfaced today on phys.org, and it's all about a paper which you can view conceptually. We also know that many large earthquakes, which involve rupture of multiple and variable fault segments in each rupture, violate the basic assumption of the periodic earthquakes model, which is a repeated accumulation and release of energy on a given fault plane. So anyway, for all you earthquake forecasters out there, you earthquake enthusiasts, I know earthquakes are very interesting, especially considering the amount of energy that is put out by them. Apparently following a Cantor function, otherwise known as a Devil's Staircase. And I don't know what I'm doing here on phys.org. Definitely not reading the Earth section, as I may lose IQ points. And shout out once again to Diamond from Oppenheimer Ranch Project, who sent us a video here about the cosmic catastrophe cycle. And he talks about the 6,000 and some year cycle here as well. If you haven't seen this one, perhaps read it, perhaps watch it. Cosmic Climate Catastrophe, The Great Year, Sacred Geometry, Hidden History, Part 1. Here's a clip. Whoops. That wasn't the clip I wanted. Here's a random clip.
I'll also leave you the Wikipedia to the Great Year and the commentary on Hamlet's Mill.
So if you're not aware of the catastrophe cycle, Diamond is an expert in that. That's what he did his I believe it's a master's thesis on things like Milankovitch cycles. If you're not familiar with those, perhaps have yourself a watch. Next, we're going to do the earthquake rundown for the past 24, and it looks like we see a swarm there in western South America, as well as some earthquakes kicking off in places like Utah and Idaho. Let's go up the list and only report things that are below 100 kilometers depth or over a 6 magnitude, or anomalous. Anyway, here's a deep quake at Tajikistan, and we've seen quite a few of those in both Afghanistan and Tajikistan over the past couple of weeks. Here's a deep one in Indonesia. It's 231 kilometers and a 4.3 magnitude. And we're just going to scroll up the list here. There's one of the largest of the past 24 in Western South America. Here's a deep one at Little Sitkan Island out in the Aleutians. And hey, none of that. None of that. All right, that's better. And I'm getting a call here. But it's coming to the phone instead of to the... It's coming to the phone instead of to the gall darn other thing. Let me call him. All right, I got to log out of Skype. Bear with me a minute here. I'm going to give Diamond a call. Hey, Diamond. Are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, we're recording right now. We're
I'm
actually recording the daily space weather right now.
Oh my God.
We just got to the geology section here, so we're going to be doing earthquakes. Care to join me?
Yeah, I have no problem.
Cool. All right, so we see a deep quake at Chile also. It's a 4.8 magnitude at 108 kilometers depth. And Diamond, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Here's a 4.1 at Argentina at 241 kilometers. A 4.8 north of New Zealand in that rift zone in the ocean there. It's 100 kilometers depth at 4.8 magnitude. Another deep quake at Tajikistan at a 4.1 magnitude and 187 kilometers depth. And we're just scrolling up the list here, scrolling. Another deep quake at Afghanistan. So lots of deep quakes at Afghanistan and Tajikistan. Another deep quake in Western South America. A deep quake by the Philippines. So interesting events going on here, as well as a coronal mass ejection kicking off as we do the video. And a 4.2 in Utah coming in just a few hours ago there at 2:56 UT. Next we're doing volcanoes, and I know Diamond is a big fan. I love some of the work he's done on volcanoes here. Good times. He is a very enthusiastic volcanologist. So we see, let's see, Kluchevskoy, 23,000 foot plume there. Don't try to pole vault the caldera. Suwanose Jima, 4,000 foot plume there. Semaru, flight level 14,000. Dacono, flight level 7,000. Popocatépetl. Is it Popocatépetl or Popocatépetl? I think it's Popocatépetl because of that accent, no?
Well, people get pissed regardless how you say it, so it doesn't matter.
Anyway, it's exploding, and that's on my bucket list. I want to go see that one in person someday if Mexico's ever able to clean up its act, where I feel safe going there without getting kidnapped. Anyway, it's producing a 21,000 foot ash plume. Also Sabancaya exploding, 27,000 foot plume there. And Novatos de Chilean not identifiable in satellite data. That was weird when you called, man. When you called, it was ringing on my phone, but not on the computer. I had it all set up for you to just call, so that there'll be a little bit of a hiccup there, but it's all good, man. So we've moved on to the cosmology segment here, and some interesting stuff.
Let's just recap on the South American quakes.
Yeah, by all means.
The cacophony of quakes that have happened there in the last 72 hours. Over 33% have been quite deep. And they're moving around Chile and Argentina there. And there hasn't been a large quake there in a minute. So to suggest that these could be precursors to a big event is probably well above 60% at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying for a long time that my favorite place for a large quake is that area because it's, I think they're one of the largest ones we've seen in the past year was actually out there. It was like a 7.2 magnitude, but it was out in the Andes somewhere, and nobody really felt it very much.
Yeah, 7 magnitude is annual. 8 magnitude is bidecadal. So we're looking for an 8 magnitude because there hasn't been one in a while.
Yeah,
and that would be, and if it's the right 8 magnitude at the right position. Here's the weird thing: in that region, most of the 8 magnitude quakes or heavy quakes happen well deep under the edge of the plate, as opposed to towards the proximity of the edge of the plate there by the Pacific. Now, if we get a more major quake in the right spot, because of the size of the mountain range on that ocean, you could get a cleaving event that creates a massive tsunami that would push out into the Pacific and basically destroy Indonesia, the Philippines, Hawaii, and most of China, Japan.
Probably even places like New Zealand, right? New Zealand, Fiji, all that sort of stuff.
Well, it depends because of the way the wave would propagate. It might not be so bad there.
Okay. Anyway, let's get to the cosmology.
Because of the way Tonga curves around. It's hit or miss. It depends on where the landslide occurs, because it would have to be a landslide that moves into the ocean. So, I mean, we're talking, we're 1 out of a million.
Yeah. All right, so let's do the cosmology segment here. There's some interesting stories once again. Again, we've updated the smashomash.com/forum section because there's an interesting story here about cosmic jets. So there's been a quasar, and the jet coming out of these things. People think this is a Birkeland current coming out of these jets. And I know you can't see what's on my screen now. You'll have to watch the video, Diamond. But there's a Birkeland current that comes out of these jets, but it's not a full-length Birkeland current, because the way these things emit, it's going to emit some protons and then some electrons, and then some protons and some electrons, and some protons and some electrons. And there's a bridging effect that happens. This particular jet that this article is about is traveling at about 13% the speed of light. So this is the most energetic outflow ever measured from a quasar. And this one is called, it's got the catchy name of J135246.37 plus 423.923.5. And any ideas?
Yeah, now if you look at this, the actual data that these people have come up with, they're basing their assumptions on 36 pixels, period. So the amount of resolution they have is so pathetic that to make any assumptions, let alone conclusions, is beyond ridiculous.
Well, it is
36. It's 36 pixels, and they claim somehow they know that this is the brightest and the fastest amazing thing ever.
Well,
it's just a lack of real science, in my opinion, and 99.9% assumptions, which are all my problems currently.
In any case, mainstream astronomy thinks that they can calculate the mass of these objects, and the way that they calculate the mass of these objects, such as distant galactic cores, this one is estimated to be 60 billion light years away. The way they estimate this is based on the fusion dynamo model of the sun, and that's the way the calculations are done to try to calculate the mass of things, and that, let's just say, that's a problem. Now, my next tab here is Eugene Bagashov.
But wait, it can't be 60 billion light years away, because the universe is only 18 billion light years or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's
closer. That's a bit of a problem. Yeah, exactly. Now, I want to just play another clip here from Eugene's Does Electromagnetism Work in Space? Now, the first time I ever talked to Diamond was just a couple days ago. He called me at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I answered, and I felt like he was an old friend. Turns out we have more in common than we even thought we did. It's kind of weird. Apparently, he was told by the powers that occurred deep in his mind to give me a ring that day, and it was just an awesome conversation. And I was in the middle of watching this particular video, right as he called, and so a lot of the stuff that Eugene says in this video is the exact same thing that I was saying to Diamond about the way stellar jets work, the way electron flux happens in space, whether or not there are Birkeland currents every place that people are hallucinating and thinking that they're seeing when they aren't there at all. And now keep in mind, Eugene is a PhD candidate particle physicist, and he's someplace in the middle of classical cosmology, And he's got all kinds of problems with the Sapphire project. I agree with a lot of the things that he says about it. With the exception of one thing, I think transmutation of elements did happen in the Sapphire chamber. But as far as the other stuff that he says about it being nothing like a star, I completely agree with. Sapphire, what they've done is they've created a small section of a stellar corona-like area, but it doesn't have any of the features of a star. It lacks magnetic fields. It lacks all of the features that we see in a star besides what's happening in the corona. So the good news is that if transmutation of elements really does happen at the Sapphire chamber, that's a very, very important piece of human technology, and it's a new tool in the cosmic toolbox, in addition to things like gravity. One of the major problems in classical cosmology, standard cosmology that you would learn in an astronomy class right now at college, is that they lack a lot of tools. So
all of it.
they're not figuring in electromagnetism in classical cosmology, and then in the electric universe theory, they've got electromagnetism in places where it isn't happening in space. So, for instance, if everything was electric, when we looked at these galactic jets coming out of quasars and so on, we would see things like Markland convection, which is a centrifuge-like effect that happens separating chemicals in space when they're exposed to electromagnetism. And we don't see that. We see clouds of hydrogen, and I don't want to get super in-depth because this is the daily space weather video. Let me just play a clip from this one. Please watch Does Electromagnetism Work in Space by Eugene the Philosopher. So this is a great, great video. And he's going to have a lot of people clutching their pearls and saying, "I don't want to talk to you anymore because you've debunked all of my bullshit."
That would make sense, and the planet would.
Why is it so quiet?
From this ring, therefore it would be like roughly circular orbit in this ring.
I don't know why it's so quiet. For some reason, it's really quiet.
Quite an eccentric orbit,
But anyway, please watch the video, Does Electromagnetism Work in Space? Now, we see another interesting article here. Check out this image. And again, I know you can't see this diamond. I can't really screen share. It's going to throw off the recording of this. Or I would screen share, certainly. This explosion here in space, this is a prime example of where we would see Markland convection. When you see these jets coming out of here, all of these different areas, this torus that we're looking across, there should be a Birkeland current here. There should be Markland convection where we see chemical separation. And if everything was electric, we would see that every place in space. Every cloud associated with a star or a galaxy would be absolutely chemically separated as if a centrifuge was applied in reverse, causing all the heavy elements to end up in the center of these cylindrical things. That is stuff that you can do in a laboratory and that we do not see happening in space. And basically these jets are little chunks of what's going on in these areas are electric, but the overall systems and the underlying stars aren't. Anyway, this one is about a nova outburst from V906 Carinae. So it's a wonderful novel shell image here. And again, especially in these areas out here, these are the effects of the Z-field jets coming out of this star, which is in here in the center. Its Z-fields are emitting like this. There are enduring coronal holes in probably all stars. And so perhaps read that article. It may get the gears turning. So, and we have updated smashamash.com/forums section on the most, where we talk about all sorts of things like massive radio galaxy Cygnus A and, the most. So if you've got things to contribute to the most in cosmology, please update the site. Just create a login and hook it up. And we will be putting out the T-shirt that has the catchy name 3C405 for the second most massive radio source in the sky after only the Sun, a galaxy known as Cygnus A, otherwise known as 3C405, which is believed to be 530 million light years away. And now we've moved on to, oh my God, what is going on? We've got Diamond here, and he's got a covidiot thing. Oh, it's behind him. All right, perfect. Thank you for writing over that thing. So Diamond, what do you have to say about COVIDiots? You got any breaking COVIDiot news?
Well, the World Health Organization has been defunded by the United States thanks to our president.
I know, thank
And
goodness.
I don't think any other political party other than the Republicans with Donald Trump at the head would have done that. And
Yeah.
I don't support politics or politicians, nor do I vote. And I don't think that any well-mannered American should vote. And that would send a great message if no one showed up to vote. But I digress. And the reason is because of the political separation. You know, there's no independent party allowed into the frat. I worked in politics for a while, and it's nonsense. But let's get to the facts that they defunded the World Health Organization under Trump, which is a quarter of the money that goes to this fraudulent group, which is obviously taking sides with the communist China.
Yeah.
And
China.
has withheld
Siding with
information from
China.
the world, which caused, they basically, the World Health Organization is responsible for the global pandemic. And anyone, any investigator, or anyone with an undergraduate degree, or even someone without a college degree that has an IQ above 90, could probably look at this information and come to that conclusion, that there was collusion between the World Health Organization and Communist China to withhold information for weeks. And during a pandemic, those weeks are critical moments where you can actually stop it. And they didn't. And so these 100,000 lives are on their heads, and they owe the world an apology and reprisals, in my opinion.
I agree. And, you know, it's nice that the U.S. is saving a couple bucks here by reducing funding to that. You know, everybody continues to make government bigger and bigger
it's only
and bigger.
$400 million annual.
Everybody.
It's like a drop in the bucket.
Everybody, including most Republicans, just keep making the government bigger and bigger and bigger. At least there are some people out there with some sort of morals and ethics that are like willing to make the government smaller and hold the government accountable instead of the government constantly holding me accountable for everything and getting promotions every time they fuck up. So anyway, we've updated the smashomatch.com/forum section about COVID-19/coronavirus. It's now over 23 pages long, and yesterday we had a bunch of dildos on there because dildo sales have just spiked as a result because people can't go out on dates. And it's actually illegal in some places, believe it or not, such as, I believe, New Zealand. But we picked up a Zero Hedge article here about the White House.
In sex toys.
So the White House has leaked a draft plan to reopen the American economy. So, you know, we make these videos every day because it's some cutting-edge stuff, and this is going to be an important one. It's just a Zero Hedge article, but we've got a massive timeline dating all the way back to January 23rd. And if you notice, I don't know if you've checked out the forums yet, Diamond, but the first page, the first thing that I put up about this was the Wikipedia article about coronaviruses. And the first thing I typed about this back on January 23rd is it dangerous, in parentheses, not particularly for healthy people, / what are they and where did they come from? And while we don't know where viruses come from, it's not dangerous. It's SARS. It's literally SARS-CoV-2. And anyway, if you haven't checked out smashomatch.com/forum, check it out. We've created a massive timeline here and updated it every day. And I think yesterday was the first day I didn't update
beyond
it.
That, let me jump in.
Yeah.
What we determined in the last 3 to 5 days from inside information from doctors on the front lines worldwide and from actual published information coming out in the last 2 days is that the way they've been treating the people worldwide is based on the information that came out from Communist China. And they said it was a novel coronavirus that was causing SARS and a pneumonia. And what's coming out now from doctors that are treating these patients with the respirators is that it is not SARS. There are not pneumonias. It's a novel virus with a novel effect. What's actually happening is a reduction in the hemostasis of the blood, and oxygen depletion, which is causing asphyxia. They don't need more air into their lungs. They need more oxygen in their blood.
They need less heme.
It's completely antithetical to pneumonia. So what is being uncovered is that out of these 128,000 deaths, the majority of them are from intubation, which is not needed. So doctors are actually killing patients.
Completely agree.
Because of false information from China, and we don't have the right protocol yet. And
100%.
That's going to take weeks to implement.
Yeah, and you know,
if
you get put on a ventilator, the risk, the survivability goes actually down statistically a lot. Because think about how dangerous it is to go on a respirator.
Yeah, it's
if you put somebody
50%. As soon as respirator, your survivability is down by half.
Yeah, when you put somebody on a ventilator, people have a tendency to fight the ventilator. It's very unnatural to have a tube shoved in your trachea. So if people are fighting the ventilator, they have to be put into a medically induced coma with opioids. Imagine how dangerous that is. One of the biggest dangers of surgery is the anesthesiologist killing you by accident. So let's move on real quick now. We're going to talk about economics for a minute. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up off of its lows. It's at $6,892. According to the Coinbase exchange. So crypto's been seeing a bit of a recovery here. I want to also look at Ethereum on the Coinbase exchange. And keep in mind, the reason we mention the exchange is because there's problems with the volume information about the reporting of crypto transactions. All of the different agencies report their volume data differently. So take all the volume data regarding trading, if you understand what this means as far as trading, with a truckload of salt, because there's no consensus on how often that gets updated and so on. The reason I always show Coinbase is because I trade on Coinbase with a small, little, tiny token investment.
It's the same as the COVID-19 data.
But yeah, it can be cherry picked very, very easily. And I've never seen cherry picking, Diamond, like with this COVID-19 stuff. The level of propaganda is just like the volatility index. It's off the scale to the point where it's incoherently high. So you can cherry pick anything. You can prove any point that you want to make about COVID-19, coronavirus, or whatever you feel like calling the global pandemic. You can make any point you want by taking a piece of data and not reporting the rest of the data. Just like it's the biggest hoax ever, and it's dethroned climate change being caused by carbon dioxide. Anyway, I just wanted to look at the commodities real quick here. We see a bunch of bond purchasing. So we see dips in every bond except the Japanese 10-year. So there's some selling in the Japanese 10-year because the yen is being inflated even worse than the dollar. The euro is being inflated even worse than the dollar. And so we've got massive bond purchasing in U.S. bonds, not just by the Federal Reserve, but also by people trying to hide in a safe haven. That's good news for Americans because it indicates that the U.S. is still the U.S. economy just puts to shame everybody. China has come out of the woodwork as a paper tiger. I mean, everybody's so scared of China. It's so scary. China is not scary. Anyway, oil is down. Check this out, man. Oil is down to $20.08 a barrel. So this is not good. And the Saudis and Russians have done this on purpose. They were asked to reduce their oil output, but they've increased their oil output instead to try to shut down U.S. oil shale. And what they've done is they've deflated the price of their own products and screwed themselves. Anyway, gold is up to it's come off its highs here, but it's still $1,742.
Yeah, gold and silver are going up, thankfully, now.
Yeah, it's looking a little bit more logical. You know, when the market first crashed, and I know you saw it too, Diamond. When the market first crashed, none of the technicals made a goddamn bit of sense. Gold and silver were proportional to the market instead of inversely proportional to the market. In other words, the market was going down, and so were precious metals. I've put up the silver chart, the 1-year silver chart here, and it's just ridiculous. The fact that this crashed the same time as the market did made me think from day one that it was an engineered financial crash. Anyway, there's the market page on CNBC. I don't know what the hell I don't know what the I don't know what the futures are here. I don't really like the way this page is formatted. I'm just going to move on to talk about our mission. Now, I don't know if you've heard about our mission, Diamond. I'm going to go through it backwards. Number 7, to not be ossified in our beliefs and to treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion. It takes people a while to understand the new science, and, you can't rush it. You got to let people digest the information, and it takes a long time. One of the other missions is to advance the study of predictive phenomenon, not nonsense, predictive phenomenon, to do things like optimize value, reduce risk and liability, save lives and resources, and adapt, no matter what the adversity is, whether it's a solar flare, nuclear war, global pandemic, or just a bunch of COVIDiots showing up at your back door. There is no problem that can't be solved, folks. It's also to write scientific papers as included in our mission, and we're getting way behind on that because there's way too much stuff to do and not enough funding, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, such as growing Jerusalem artichokes, and thanks, Mr. Moriello, for that. We have some Jerusalem artichokes planted. I got to go weed around them and maybe throw some mulch and stuff like that, but I think they are coming up already, so that's a good thing. White-tailed deer beat the crap out of them last year and kept biting the tops off, so we're going to have to put some kind of a little fence thing, a little lightweight fencing around those areas. And we're also growing some indoor tomatoes inspired by guys like you and Christian Westbrook and guys like David Dubine. Another part of our mission is to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach, hence videos like this one, and to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects. Your weather is cosmic in origin, almost entirely. And I don't know what you think, Diamond. Do you think the weather is caused by CO2, Diamond?
No, probably not.
And also, and number 1 on the mission, and this is what you'll see if you go to the smAsho.org site, it's to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, which, I talk to Eugene Bagashov, I talk to him regularly on Skype, and, we argue about certain things, and that's a good thing. We even argue about the term a unified theory of physics, and we won't get into that in this video. Also, check out the music. If you haven't been to SoundCloud before, it's soundcloud.com/Daniel-Nigro-2. I don't know why such a dumb URL, but we usually link that below the video, so perhaps check that out. Some older and weirder tracks on there, not only by me, but by my colleague, Dr. Sam Afif. And also, speaking of Dr. Sam Afif, we're trying to get this track here, Professor Krookenstein, Dr. Steelshank, to number 10. It's a fairly old track. It's on soundclick.com/GoldenCatProductions. It's actually currently on number 29 on the instrumental rock subgenre. If we get that into the top 10, I'll give that song away for free. You can buy it right now for 99 cents. And everything's free for the whole month on Patreon and Subscribestar. So all of our posts are public as we're trying to raise some funds and gain some Patreons and so on. And I got to shrink you down here a little bit, Diamond. You're covering up part of the null school. All right, there we go. Now we're looking at the jet streams here, nullschool.net. And you can see some very concentrated jet streams there over the U.S. Here's the Eastern jets. And the jet streams are avoiding India again, the second most populous nation in the world. Is it's like repelling the jet stream or something. It's pretty funky. Next, we're going to look at the water vapor maps. Here's Europe and Africa. Here's Far East and Oceania. What are you drinking, Diamond? Is that ginger beer? Diamond's chugging grain whiskey right now. Just kidding, just kidding. Here's a lightning map, and we do see some lightning here off of the Atlantic coast, places like North Carolina. Lightningmaps.org. Scare your foes by predicting thunder. Forecast thunder and freak out the natives. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar map, courtesy of Weather Underground, an organization named after terrorists. And here's the U.S. water vapor map. Let's just animate that real quick. I think we lost you, but then we got you back. And there's a U.S. water vapor map. We see a nice ribbon of dry air going across the whole country there. And that's causing a little bit of a refraction of the jet stream, you could say. And no weather pornography today. But hey, Smash team, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for calling Diamond and joining us with the daily space weather. We've got a couple bonus features. For instance, here I've logged out of my Patreon to show you the membership levels here are $1 a month and $9.99 a month. And again, we've made all the posts here public for the entire month of April. So I want to roll out the cosmology segment that we made yesterday. Currently, you can only see this on Patreon and on Subscribestar. And basically, it's just a music video featuring our favorite star, the local yellow dwarf. So if you haven't heard that yet, we're going to release it publicly on YouTube at 6 a.m. We're going to do a live premiere of that, and that's 6 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And there's a Subscribestar. We've logged out there. We put in a humorous alarm tone yesterday to amuse and annoy our pals. The world's been very anxious to hear from you, sir. Would you like me to call the media organizations and let them know that you have arisen? Lastly, we're going to look at some more images of the sun here. Here's the intensitygram showing no sunspots. Here's the magnetogram, and I'll refresh that for you. No real magnetic orientation going on except for that little small region there. Nothing to write home about. Let's play another image here of the local yellow dwarf. It's my favorite view, the 171 angstroms, which is ionized iron. Are you playing a flute, man? You want to give us some roll the credits music? Thanks, man. That was awesome. That was awesome. So yeah, anything else you'd like to add, subtract, multiply, or divide to the video?
Be safe, grow food, and don't believe the hype.
Cheers, man. Hey, thanks again for tuning in. I'm gonna stop recording, but I'm not gonna hang up on you. And thanks, viewers, for viewing the daily space weather. I've vanished. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink, and if you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back.